Welcome, warriors. In our next October Awareness Survivor story, I speak with a woman whose survival story involves both faith and fear. We are taught that God wants us to have faith over fear. And while that is true, it is often easier said than done. Sometimes we can see that God gives us light to help us find our path out of the darkness of fear. Grab a tissue and listen to this gripping story of a woman who recognized those points of light, using her faith to work with God to escape fear and darkness. Let's rock.
Does your past haunt you? Maybe you're in a storm that feels like it will never end. Are you fighting a battle that's rendering you hopeless? Maybe you feel like you're fighting alone, but your battle was not meant to be a solo endeavor. You were meant to be a warrior among warriors. My name is Heather, and I grew up thinking my battles were nobody's business until I found myself in an abusive marriage and felt cut off from all avenues of help. In this podcast, you will hear warriors' words. They will tell you of their battles, both won and lost, their journeys, and their lessons learned along the way. But we don't stop there. These warriors will share how they have applied those lessons to go from warrior to survivor to thriver. Whether it's an abusive marriage, illness, mental health crisis, or any number of traumas this world dishes out, these warriors will use their words to help you find the beauty in your broken, move beyond your battles, and become the thriver God created you to be. Pick up your sword or boxing gloves and join the battle. Your words are powerful, my friends. Make them warrior words.
Welcome back to the Warrior Words podcast. Our guest today is April T. Giauque. She is a published author, ghostwriter, and podcaster. Her first published work, Pinpoints of Light, Escaping the Abyss of Abuse, is a memoir about escaping abuse, being homeless with 5 children, and finding the light. Her second book, Out of Darkness, Find, Fuel, and Live in Your Light, takes you on a healing journey to step out of darkness and into the light. As a writing coach, ghostwriter, and editor, she empowers women to move from trauma to truth and darkness to light by helping them uncover the heart of their story and share it boldly through writing and speaking. As the host of the Beacon of Light podcast, April T. Giauque creates a global platform for authors who write stories of hope. This podcast not only gives them a place to share their light, but also connects them with a global audience, amplifying goodness and spreading a sense of community worldwide. Before April shares her amazing story, here's a review from Rav451. Loving this podcast. So much great information and encouragement. I appreciate you, Rav451. And the fact that you recognized how encouraging this podcast is, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to write the review and acknowledging that encouragement. Would you like me to read your review on an upcoming episode? Please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review for the show. Your comments and star ratings help people find the Warrior Words podcast, and it only takes a few minutes of your time. And all month long, I am featuring a couple listings in my Ko-fi shop that are pink and purple to help stomp out breast cancer and stomp out domestic violence. You can find them at ko-fi.com/warriorwords/shop. That's ko-fi.com/warriorwords /shop. And you know, that link will be in the description for you. And another option that I have for you this month is from Lila Rose. They make beautiful hair accessories. And one of those is a breast cancer awareness ribbon hair clip. And I know this, if you listen to the bio, this episode is for domestic violence, but I still wanted to share the breast cancer hair clip. And that comes in 7 sizes, and it's a silver ribbon with pink beads. And you can find those at LilaRose.com/RL2MSI. And that is an affiliate link. Again, will be in the show notes. Now, on to the show. Hi, everyone. As you heard in the intro, we are blessed to have April T. Giauque with us today. And I met April, or became aware of April in, oh gosh, it was probably 2 years ago, maybe. I think it was 2 years ago, at the Unite in Light Domestic Violence Conference. And so I asked April if she would be willing to come on and share her story with us today. So welcome to the Warrior Words podcast, April.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here, Heather.
Well, thank you. And so then let's just jump right into it. If you could share your story of domestic violence and I guess just how you entered this crazy, horrible situation.
Yeah. So, like any great love story, you find someone, you have goals, they have goals, everything seems to match. You have a similar foundation, you even have similar religion. And so, like, check the box, things are okay. And I'm not naive, and I know there will be challenges and issues, but together we'll work together as a team.
Right.
And that is kind of how I envisioned going through the challenges of life, such as job loss or cancer, or, right? I mean, you get it. Life will happen, and it's not going to be just an easy way. And so as you prepare for this and you date, maybe you might not ask all the questions that you think you should.
Yes,
and so in the lack of questioning on my responsibility, I'm kind of going in with, look, these things match. I do love him. He loves me. We share a commonality. Let's go for this. And the first little while, wonderful. I know, weird, sounding familiar out there.
Yeah.
And from that point of, life can be stressful. We owned our own business. He was a general contractor, and brilliant at what he could do. He could do all of the trades, plus he could even draw the house plans and get them to a point where an engineer would stamp and like, hey, yeah, ready, go build these homes. So as a general contractor building homes, there is a lot of stress involved with that because you need to coordinate things, or you're ending up doing the work yourself, which he had the skill and talent to do. And so I just figured, well, that's just part of owning a business, and being stressed is part of this. Well, we discovered quickly that, wow, I can have kids real fast. And soon we had our first one on our way, and life is okay. A little bit of stress. I'm finishing school. I'm pregnant. He is gaining more and more construction jobs here and there. And the idea is we were going to build homes and sell the homes, build and sell and build and sell. So it sounds great. The economy is in a pretty good place for all of this. So off we go. And I deliver my first child, and we can feel, this love and excitement for our baby and desiring to nest and wanting to get into a home. The very first home that we built, we moved into. And then we figured, well, we could use this as a model home, help other people, help other clients to say, look at all the great things that we have. And in all of those good things, and in now caring for an infant and caring for the family, I'm missing some key, I would say, behavioral information coming from my first husband. And I did not understand or recognize how he responded to stress. And so I was missing the clues. And then in comes substance abuse, where never grew up with that, don't really understand it. I've never had a drink in my life, so I really don't get it. And in this way, him coming back to the home just completely wasted, I'm thinking, yeah, this is a little different. Not really. Don't even know what to do. Never grew up with alcohol, never grew up with coffee or tea. So like nothing.
Yeah.
So these are big surprises. And
Mm-hmm.
in that, I'm thinking, okay, here's that first handle of the trial. Let's see how we can work through this together. And maybe he needs things, right? Kind of going into a fix it mode,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah,
know,
I can relate to that.
and trying to help and support. And then apologies come forward, and we'll try to restore things, and things go pretty good. So then we kind of go in this cycle of things are okay and going well. And then we discover that we're pregnant again. Now we're going to have a second baby.
Yeah.
We now have 2 homes underneath our belt. We're still trying to sell one of the homes, and the other home is being built. So it's a little more stressful, but it's still
Mhm.
going to be okay. The frequency of drinking and drugs and alcohol are not as often. Oh, wait, maybe they are, and I'm just not catching them.
Mm.
And then watching this I would say a new what would be the best word for this, new friends coming into our lives. And some
Okay.
of these friends were high school friends, some of these friends were people who worked on the job sites. So thinking, okay, these are who we work with and who help us build and construct these homes,
Mm-hmm.
but not really realizing what the drug scene was like with the group of old friends. And then I'm at a family party, and at the family get together, I get pulled aside by a stepsister who mentions some background information that probably would have been great to have prior to getting married. And so, yes, this is kind of how he coped and dealt with life in high school. He had made a change. He had cleaned up, sobered up, even served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I'm thinking, check the boxes. We're okay. I believe
Yeah.
fully in an idea and understanding of repentance, and
Mm-hmm.
that life can change. And through
Yes.
Christ, all things are possible. So
Amen.
I look at this and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe we've just stepped back a little bit. And I take the information and I think, well, now we're going to have 2 kids. We need to find a way to help and cope and deal with this. So maybe the stress of owning our own business is too much, right? So I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
at how to help with these kinds of things and not really asking the question of, you can't handle stress and worry very well. Maybe let's find some skills for that. No, I'm thinking
Yeah.
let's just eliminate stress, and that will take care of the problem, as opposed to, oh, we don't understand how to work and deal with it.
Right.
So, it's not a fault in the sense of I'm blaming, but I did look back and reflect, of course, because you're thinking, well, we have a balance of a family in here, and with children, you really want to be able to help find a way to
Right.
heal and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a cycle. We started here, went down in this loop, and then as we're trying to on the rebound, we never quite hit the top again where we were. It went
Mm.
up, but it didn't quite get there.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but in an upward swing, and that causes a great amount of hope.
Yes, it
And in
does.
that hope, I'm going to have a third baby. Yay! So, rabbits are us. There we go. And by this time, we've had 6 homes built and constructed and moving around often. And we even moved into another state and then ended up returning. And in all of that, looking at life and looking at the stress of things, we think, well, a lot of this started with drugs and alcohol. And for some people, that is the case. For us, that was more just a symptom of what was
Okay.
really going on
Mm-hmm.
underneath.
Right.
And the explanation of all of that, I don't want to give away the book. In my book, Pinpoints of Light, Escaping the Abyss of Abuse. However, there was a moment within an event, we decided to watch a movie together. I know, spoiler alert. And in watching that movie, I'll leave you to read about it. But the awareness was suddenly heightened that I wasn't working with drugs and alcohol abuse. I was actually working with a potential of intense mental health crisis. And in such a way where he is believing what the voices in his head are telling him. And this is becoming his reality. Well, we decide to reach out for some help, and we do get some through church support, and we do get some through some friends. And in this shift, which I didn't quite catch everything with, but in a shift, it showed that, look, we're going back up in a cycle. And this time it was very true. It was very real. And it was really authentic. Like, okay, we're going to be doing okay.
So
now your listeners might be wondering, all right, well, I thought this was about domestic violence. And yes and no and yes. So when we have challenges like mental health, as well as combining it with substance abuse, the end result is going to be some abuse of some sort. Right. So I describe it as thinking about this as a caged animal or as a predator. So now this might be sounding familiar. In the predatory type of abuse, this person looks for their victim, helps to groom them, helps to bring them in because they know that they can have that domineering power, control, etc. over that person. And whether they do it with verbal, emotional, physical, maybe it's financial, maybe it's all of it, right. Isolation, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And they are doing that because of either their great fear, maybe it was done to them, whatever the other side is happening. But it is a sought piece for control, the cat batting around the mouse, yes. In every way you want to think of that. Mm-hmm. The second way, as I described, which is more like a caged animal, which more falls into the category of where we were. So my husband, caged within his own mind, does not know if I am there now to help him or to hurt him. And if you've ever approached an animal within a cage, they back up, they're into the corner, they're ready to defend themselves. They don't know, they have no trust. And so again, they're going to strike out whether you were there to help or to hurt. They don't know. Mm-hmm. The end result is still the same. It's still abuse. Yes. And that was more of the category that we fell into. And it's not an excuse. It's just how his reality played out. So in looking at this thing, he could understand, I need to hide this other part of how I'm dealing with my crisis, and I'm going to live my life in this direction, which will show, right? Put on a show for the world. My life is good. We're stable. We are okay. And that's the direction we went. Now, there was some true authenticity with that. And soon I find out I'm pregnant with my fourth child. So, because, again, trust was rebuilt. This was mm-hmm. months and months of looks like we're back on track. Right. And so you extend the trust again. And this time with my fourth pregnancy, I am really juggling a lot. And not because I'm working, but I'm just trying to work with my children. My children, my first three boys, are all showing signs of being on the autism spectrum. Now, this is in the early 2000s, and autism is, a huge buzzword at the moment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's still pretty, I don't know what to do. I need some help. So going to doctors and things like this, we were able to get into a study. And in this study, it was going to be for DNA, behavioral, all these things. Mm-hmm. And if you agreed to do the study, you could get a lot of good help. And where we were struggling financially, to say the least, with loans from banks, building homes, trying to sell the home, which home is going to go on the market. I got to get another job, right? All of these
All the things.
great facets of stress coming forward. I'm like, I'll take the free research project. Let's go there.
Yes.
So we did. Good and interesting comes out of this. So the interesting part is all of us need to partake in this. All DNA. They take all of it, and then they do observations on the adults, me, my husband, as well as the children, everything.
Right.
And they're just trying to gather as much information as they can, build a huge database, and see what they can do within the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years with this information. So I'm all in. We go, we do. It takes weeks, but we all work it out, and it's wonderful. At the end of everything, I get back a stack of information, which is fantastic. And I'm thinking, okay, this will be like, here's what everyone's dealing with. Here are some plans. And here's the kind of a routine to follow. Here's maybe some prescriptions to help, right? I'm thinking, great, I've got a plan here and we're going to be fine. Come to find out, and reading through all of the information, it was just like, yes, your children are on the autism spectrum. And I'm noticing in the file base that there's another file. And I know I'm big pregnant, but I'm like, okay, this one's not born yet. Where's this? There's a fourth one here. And it had my first husband's name on it. And I'm like, And I open it up, and they start talking about bipolar schizophrenia as well as autism spectrum disorders.
Wow.
And I will just tell you, that was one of those moments where like the Plinko chip is coming down and you're like, wow. And it hits the slot.
Yes.
And you see the flash before your eyes and you connect all the dots and you're thinking, oh, okay, now what do we do? When he received the information, obviously denial, everyone's crazy,
Right, yeah.
and we don't know what's going to be happening here. So in the craziness, and that's not me. Suddenly we kind of do a self-fulfilling prophecy of crazy. And I don't say that lightly, because if anyone has lived with someone who's had intense, severe mental stress, illness, and psychotic episodes, they can become very dangerous very fast.
Right.
And now I'd like to introduce you to the domestic violence that we went through. So with an unhealthy mind and in the intensity of the anxiety and sheer panic that my first husband was going through, it was to the levels of, if you were to pull into a gas station, we're all in the car together, we need to get gas. So we're going into the gas station, and other cars are weird. They're at the gas station too. And he grabs you and says, be careful. They're watching. And just act normal. It's going to be okay. And you're like, no one cares. We all got to get gas, dude. Everyone's going out about their way. No, they're watching. So suddenly your life becomes a paranoia, and the panic would set in. And then he would receive phone calls from the national or the nation's, the national print, or excuse me, mint. So that was about at the same time where the $10 bill was now printing with "We the People" on it. And apparently they had to ask my husband for his permission to do that. No, they never called. But here we are. So in any kind of noise or panic or intensity of things, the mental health gets amplified. Well, we now have 4 kiddos, infant, one who's 1, one who's 2.5, and one who's just 4. And the first 3 all have autism. And my second one is nonverbal, very aggressive, a lot of noise in the house, these kinds of things. My third, again, nonverbal, hitting self-injurious behaviors, these kinds of things. Yeah. So when the kids go off, he's now feeling that they're being controlled by a microchip, by something. So we're going to beat it out of him. So here we are. Oh, yes. Don't forget, lots of loans out there because we're building homes for people.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we can't pay any of our subcontractors. We have no money to eat with. Oh, wait, I forgot. I'm using WIC coupons. And I'm not trying to make this in any kind of degrading statement, but it's really challenging to eat tuna, carrots, Life cereal, milk, and cheese and make that work. Because the
Or
tuna and the Life cereal, we tried it. It's not the best. Anyway, I'm kind
okay.
of being facetious. But anyway, that's the point, right? We are
Yeah.
in serious trouble. And we're able to finally sell this huge beast of a home that was really dragging us down. And we got some other projects off on the way. And then he is able to enter into what we call the parade of homes, right? Where you build these homes and they compete against each other. Well,
Mhm.
he did. And his won. I mean, fantastic. Well, by this time, not only the National Mint is calling him, we've got the Chevrolet company calling him. Now, you might be wondering, why is this part of the story? Like, who cares? Well, he called his business Revolutionary Homes.
Mhm.
So, Revolutionary War, Constitution, anything with founding fathers, all of this was his basis. And this was going to change the world, change the country, change everything. The way that he built homes were going to allow people to live in these dreams and fulfill their the American dream, all of this stuff. Those things are not bad to think about, but when they become so much the reality that it's not your reality, this is where we get into those dangerous situations.
Right.
By default, I figure out I'm pregnant now for the 5th time. And at this point, I'm like, I need a break. So we're going to separate. And while you figure yourself out and figure out who else is going to call you and, ask permission to use something about the word revolutionary in any of their products, because you might remember from the early 2000s, Chevy, an American Revolution. Pretty sure the Revolutionary War was maybe more of that inspiration and not our little business that was struggling. But hey, there you are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know I've kind of gone on and maybe I've made a little bit of fun of this, but it's how you cope. You have to.
Yes. Yeah.
And in going through this and delivering my 5th child and in this separation, I had a lot of grieving process, a lot of mourning, because I thought that, we could still work together, kind of be the same team and still go for it. And I really had to let go of that feeling of we're not going to be this team anymore. And no matter how hard I hope, try, pray, fast, go to the temple, it's he needs some help that is way beyond me, and he is not willing to. And so we lived in a state that, sure, if he was suicidal again, we could go to the emergency room, but if he refused treatment, then they all hands off, right?
Okay. Mhm.
So it's a challenging thing. So within that abuse cycle of up and down and removing microchips from children, it got to this level of I need to start making a plan and realizing and calling it out for what it was, similar to how calling it out for what my children were going through with autism and all of that, thinking, all right, I just need to know the skills and I need to know how to help myself to remove myself from this complete isolation from all of it. Name the red
Right.
flag. Well, I was in it.
Yes.
So
Sounds it.
I start my process in doing this and became a founding parent for a charter school called Spectrum Academy. And that was a way that I could help my children start to attend a school-based system that would really help with the autism. And I was able to be a part of another program called the Northern Utah Autism Program. And they would teach us how to work with our kids. Like, you had to put in 40 hours a month of volunteer work to learn these skills. So it was a really good handoff, right, to learn all these things because they provided the babysitting and you were in the classroom learning these things. Hence why now I'm a teacher with all of these amazing kiddos, because it was like right there in front of and right there ready made for me as well as for my family.
Yeah.
So I'm working kind of on the back end like this. Well, the delusions and the intensities are getting greater and greater. He's now claiming that he is Thomas Jefferson and that he is able to use the money now to fix more and more problems. And I'm like laughing. I'm like, the money? There is no money. We are on WIC coupons. Whatever money would come in would go to drugs. And beyond the drugs, they would just be given to the entity, which was something in his mind that he had to pay off.
Okay.
So there was a moment where this might be a little bit of the spoiler in the book that I had to contact his business partner named John. And I was desperate to do so because we needed to eat and survive.
Mhm.
And I saw John all the time talking to my husband on the phone. I saw John's truck driving away all the time from the job sites. I could just never get a hold of him. And maybe the reason why was because John lived in my first husband's head. John was never real.
Oh, wow.
And John was the financial officer of the company. So you can leave your imagination to how all of that rolls down as well. So I was truly living in a beautiful mind. Yeah,
Wow.
really interesting stuff. So I'm like, okay, this is up to us guys. We got to figure this out and make a run for it. So I know now, based on all of this information, now I've got a school that my kids can go to, and I become a teacher there. I know this is my way out. So I hide bank accounts, I figure out ways. And in his paranoia, I had to bring in my children's school as part of the story because he wanted to make sure that the kids didn't go anywhere, because then the institution would infect them, implant something into their mind that would destroy him and his business, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I said, well, if I become a teacher there, I'll be your spy. So I played myself into this role and into his mind so we could escape.
Very smart.
It's a dangerous thing,
Yeah.
but I felt really prompted to go that route. So we did. And I became a teacher there and would give reports back and, share how I kept the kids safe, but fed the institution all of these lies. I have never crafted my storytelling skills so intensely up until that moment. And I've always been a writer, love writing, love journaling, kind of memoirs and these kinds of things. But I'm like, dang, I can write myself an amazing novel because I lived it right here.
Right.
So that became part of the story. And then one evening, I shared the intensities of it within the book. There became an event that we almost all lost our lives with. And the next morning, as we survived, sorry, did that spoil it? Anyway, as we survived that night, the next day, it was definitely like the eye of the storm of that hurricane going over. All's cool, peaceful, sunshine. Just waiting for the back end to hit. And I knew it would. And so that day I just played it as cool and calm and collected. And it was an interesting day where he kind of said goodbye as well, because I'd already told him, I'm getting divorced. This is it. We're done. And so that was an interesting eye of the storm. And then on the back end, which I won't tell you about, the challenge of this was within minutes of the next day, I had to make a decision if we were going to be that night's 10 o'clock news that I wasn't going to be able to listen to, if that makes sense. So the dangers and the intensities of all of that were going to come out. And I was given about 8 minutes to grab my kids and get out, and we did. And the hunt and mouse, or the cat and mouse game from there, continued for a few weeks and months. We were homeless with 5 kids in the middle of November, with kids with
Wow.
autism who like routine.
Yes, they do.
I'm just saying it was a fun way for it to go down. But in all honesty, the angels were there with us and above us, and there was a beautiful lady named Gloria who saved our lives in this run. Her story is fantastic, so it's in the book. But I know I keep referencing that,
Yeah.
but really within the book there's a lot of hope, and that's what I'm hoping that you guys understand, is that the concept of having pinpoints of light. If you look at the stars as they appear in the evening, they're just these little tiny hints of light, and yet the mariners of old, right? They were able to guide their ships by this, and so there's meaning there. And on my book, I have the whole imagery of a lighthouse for 2 reasons. One, obviously, the lighthouse shows a way, keeps you safe, beckons you away from, or warns you from danger and beckons you into safety. Of course, those things are there. The lighthouse is firm upon a foundation, and the light, as you see it far off in the distance, it is a pinpoint. And as you follow it, it grows into a ray, into a beam, and then into a beacon in which you can find safety. So that's one way to think about it. The other way is that I used to think of us gathering together as we all have light within us, which is true. And I was thinking that all of our light together was becoming like the big bonfire. No, that's not right. So in searching deeper into this, where yes, we all have our light, but when we stand near someone else, we're actually a mirror or a lens for that other person. And we, with them, help to amplify their light outward, just like the lens in a lighthouse does. And the same is true with you. As you meet someone, their lens helps to amplify your light outward, and reaching those people in that amplification so much further. So I took this idea and metaphor within my mind while we were running for our lives and thinking, I just have to find the next pinpoint. And I did, and the next, and the next. And then as I got closer and closer to those pinpoints, they became that ray, that beam, that beacon. And then we were finally out. And I use the word safe, but I always look behind me. The full story of everything from my ex-husband was all over the local news in so many different facets. And even years after we had been out, I'd been out of that marriage for over 9 years, and it was his trail of tears and wounds were still going on until finally the news picked up on it, and I shared my part of the story, and the news reports are just intense, and the amount of pain and heartache he caused so many other people, and the creepiness that was going on with teenagers and all of that in his search to try and find our girls. When you have a sick mind, it's challenging, right? It's not the excuse, but it's tough. And finally landed him in federal prison. And but he gets out real soon. So, like I said, we're safe, but we always keep an eye out, and that's okay. So a little bit of the story really goes into that piece of hope where I never lost my faith within my Heavenly Father, and I listened to promptings of the Holy Ghost, and I followed those. Sometimes I've heard stories and I've written stories with people who They might have a different faith or hope, and I'm not here to debate any of that. My choice in staying true to my Heavenly Father and listening and following that obviously led us out and into safety. And I'm not saying that you did that too and were still damaged, or even, heaven forbid, your mother or aunt was killed at the hands of their partner. I'm just saying this is how I went with it. And the confirmation and testimony that I have from following that is life sustaining. And so I will never deny it or leave it.
Right.
And that, with all that being said, prayer, forgiveness, grace upon others is extended, because their stories are ways that I will never really understand. And as empathetic as I can be, I will never understand fully their shoes. But all they need to know is that they don't have to walk alone in it. And there's many a sisterhood in this place that we'll walk with, and together we all kind of have that silent nod. We know. And hopefully we can share some more hope and light out there. And I host a podcast where I host authors who write stories of hope, and it can be from anything. It can be from business to children's books to their own memoirs, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I want more hope and light to go out. And when they come on my show, many of them get a copy of the book or purchase a copy of the book. And after they're done reading it, they pass it forward into what I call pinpoints across America, and they give it to a shelter, because maybe there's someone there that has a similar story or just needs some hope to know that you can get out and get beyond. And you still keep an eye out.
Yes, you do.
But there's so much hope and there's so much life in this world. And I would say, like, for my warrior words, the concept really is to believe in something more, and that goodness is real, and that hope brings you to the action of faith, which brings you beyond. If you don't allow yourself the 10-minute cry, you're going to go bonkers. So, of course, have those moments.
Yes.
Get up. Even if it's just for a baby step, still get up. If you stay wallowed within the victim that you were in, and I'm not going to say that you weren't, but if you remain there, find help. Reach out. Because you're not meant to stay there. No. You're not. I remember joining a whole bunch of Facebook groups where people had similar stories, and I would just drink it in and listen and you know, understand. And then there was a really interesting shift that as I was healing, I started to go beyond that. And I could realize, wow, if I don't get out, this is going to be like crabs in a bucket. They're just going to keep pulling down on all these stories. So ultimately, I want to share that there is hope, and there's so much more. And the event of the decade, of maybe 2 decades, 3 decades, 3 months, whatever it was, it's life-changing, and you will learn a lot. But if that's your identification, come on, sisters, let's branch forward, because there's so much more. So if anything, that's what I would hope that people could maybe see from all that.
Yeah, and I think
that was a lot. Sorry.
No, and you know, I do, for the listeners who don't know, I do like to have people share their stories relatively uninterrupted, you know, because it is your story. And you answered so many of my questions. Like, if I would have interrupted you to ask, you know, but you answered them as you went. And I think it's just important to let people share their stories, because as you mentioned, it's that hope. If people, you know, part of my tagline is hear yourself in our stories. And it's so important that even though the situation, the exact details are not always the same. There are similarities.
Mhm.
We all struggle, maybe we all don't have 5 kids, but maybe we have 3, or maybe we have 1. And maybe ours isn't a mental health issue, but maybe it's purely an addiction issue. But the
Right.
fact that we all struggle, and we, all of us who are in this domestic abuse, domestic violence situation, there are similarities, and I guess it's a sisterhood that nobody wants to join.
Nobody wants to join. But when you're on the team, sister, we'll help you through it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's no club nobody wants to join, but hey, here we are.
But here we are. And it was so important that you said that, just to get back up, even if it's just for a moment.
Mhm.
You get back up. You don't stay there.
Don't stay there.
You don't
Yeah.
stay there. No.
Don't
And
stay there. Your worth, you know that there is something more. That's why you're still searching. Well, I'm here to confirm your worth is wonderful, divine, amazing,
Mhm.
and it's the start to help erase, to help start to believe in yourself, to believe and own it, because you are divine. You are more than what anyone has ever talked down, beat down, etc. Because that's all a lie, all of it.
Mhm.
So don't give the energy to the lie.
Yes.
Don't doubt your doubt.
Ooh,
Just
I like that.
move forward in that faith. So,
Well, you have mentioned the book a couple times. Would you mind pulling it off? Are you
yeah,
able to pull it off the shelf and share
I
everybody the full
am.
cover?
Yep. Hopefully, I don't break everything.
I apologize for those of you who are listening, but you can jump on over to YouTube and you can see us here and Pinpoints of Light. And I think there's a second book too, isn't there?
There is, yes. So in writing my first book, this is kind of like the page turner. My Pinpoints of Light is like, oh my, wow, huh. And that's how I wanted it to be written, so that you could just experience it. I'm not getting interrupted with, and this is what I learned. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
I'm like, you got to know the story. And then I'm like, I'll save what did we learn for later. And that is in the out of darkness. And in Out of Darkness, this is that whole concept of, how did I grow up as a child? What did I learn? And with that learning, what did I take with me into the marriage? And then what did I forget about? And all of these things, right? So this is the kind of the why, and it gives the background of how did I change and what did I overcome. And so there's a few mentions of this, and you'll be like, oh, I get it. This is how, oh, okay, I got it. So they're a companion of sorts. It's not like, and now turn to page 4. It's not quite like that, but it's definitely part of this whole concept of getting out of the darkness and finding your fuel, living in your light, and moving ahead. Because we all have that light, right? And we are then, as we meet each other, we are that mirror and lens. So, yep, that's
There
us.
they are. There they are. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, the concept really, after writing these books, has been really phenomenal, because now as a ghostwriter, I'm able to help others who might not be able to know how to express themselves, and help them to write their stories. And that has been a huge, amazing service to offer to other people. And then for them to now have that and see that hope and light within their own lives, it's been a great thing. So
you are basically able to help someone find their voice, and share it. So
yeah.
yes, excellent. So, okay, so if somebody wants to find out more about you and your story, or your ghostwriting services, or get your books, how would they do that?
So you can contact me through my website at apriltribegiauque.com. And also I'm on Amazon for these books. So there'll be different ways when you go onto the website. You can see through like they'll say ghostwriting, it will say domestic violence, it will say things about the podcast, about the blog, different things. I'm hoping one day that it can become a movie. So I have things going for that direction. Maybe I do have a script all written, ready to go. And so, maybe someone out there is like, maybe Angel Network. No, maybe someone out there is like, we need a good thriller. I'm like, ooh,
Got
here you
one.
go. Yeah. So, because in the end, it's not like there's a horror show and then you're like, wow. But it has elements of Sleeping with the Enemy, Rain Man, and A Beautiful Mind. So, hey,
Intrigue.
let's go for it. Grab the popcorn. So yeah, pretty fun. And I think that's another piece of it, is just having some humor with it.
Yes.
And now with my 5 kids, I got remarried, and wonderful man. His name is Scott, and I had 4 more kids. So now we have 9 kids. Wow. And you probably saw me signing a little bit. I didn't know if this was going to be videoed or just, a hearing podcast. Does that sound dumb? A little bit podcast, or just on radio, whatever.
Audio, yes.
So I signed a little bit, but on always signing, because I have, of those 4 other children that I bore, 2 were born deaf. Hey, and one of my deaf also has autism. So just in case I couldn't get it the first time, here we go.
Learning all sorts of skills.
A lot of it is about communication and language and supports. And so it's like, well, let's figure this out. And you can wallow in it, like, oh no. And then the child's life is like, I hope my mom decides to do something. No, let's get going. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And no shaming on the victim. No. But don't stay there, ladies and gentlemen. Don't stay there. Don't. Come on. You got all these people cheering for you. I think that's what I am, really. I'm just like a professional cheerleader. So let's go.
Let's go. All right.
Let me hear you say go. Go. Okay, no, I'll stop. It's at the end of the day. Yeah, I'll stop, y'all. It's okay.
No, it's all good. It's all good. And I will make sure that the link to your website is in the show notes, because your name is not phonetically Giauque.
No.
So
no, it's not. It is Swiss French. So Swiss French. That's how you go.
All right. Well, April, thank you so much. I love that you shared your time with us, and I love that you did infuse the humor. I do say frequently that if I don't laugh, I'll cry. So
that's so true.
I do. I appreciate the humor. Because I think it is a form of stress relief, and it is a form of healing. So thank you.
Yes, agreed. You're welcome.
Thank you for your story. So much, Thank you for your time. All right. Welcome. I love that April infused humor into the telling of her story. While some people may wonder about that, I do agree with her that humor is a coping mechanism, one that can diffuse a situation and offer both hope and healing. And hope is what I heard in so many things April shared today. She freely admitted to not seeing or acknowledging some of the red flags as they appeared in her relationship. But where I heard hope was in the learning. Each time something happened, she learned new information or a new skill. Then she put it to good use in the care and protection of both herself and her children. Each new lesson brought new hope. And hope is what she offers in her books, her podcast, and her ghostwriting services. Who better to come alongside you to help you share the hope in your own story than someone who has walked a similar path? I hope you will check out April's website and see if she can't help you find your voice so that you can reflect and amplify those pinpoints of light in your own life. If you see yourself in our stories, let's work together to be that lighthouse of safety for someone else. Something to think about this week. But one other thing that I loved about my conversation with April is that she found hope and strength in and through her faith. And she is neither embarrassed by it, nor will she deny that our Heavenly Father's help in her escaping this dangerous situation was invaluable. It helped her in not staying down. She was a victim, but with God's help and guidance through pinpoints of light, she found hope and now helps others find their voice. Until we meet again, armor up, fight the good fight, seek beauty, and make your words warrior words. God bless.